Last round in Wisconsin was long straights and hard braking zones. Today, here in the mountains of Virginia, it's much more of a winding path through the hills, providing the drivers little rest. Our competitors will need to get their Porsche Caymans planted and stable if they want to be quick here. We'll see who can master VIR as we get ready to watch round 2 of the IMSA iRacing Challenge, and you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Nick Schmeg. Behind the scenes is our director, Sean Crackers Ambrose, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Virginia International Raceway has had the rare opportunity to rise from the ashes and be reborn. And this impressive facility does not disappoint in its second incarnation. Let's head down to our track guide to learn a little bit more about the jewel of the Appalachians. Welcome to Virginia International Raceway. This track near the southern border of its namesake has had the rare blessing of being resurrected from the dead. With 2 decades of use in its modern incarnation and still drawing regular visits from IMSA and Trans Am, it's safe to say that VIR is back and thriving. The owners didn't skimp on refurbishing the place either. An impressive 7 versions are available to run on iRacing, with viewing areas that include posh villas near South Bend that can be rented by fans. The track's long and complex layout has earned it some colorful corner names too. The horseshoe kicks things off right away with a never-ending double apexer that tends to suck the greedy out into its runoff. Later on, fast cars lacking downforce are sent through the terrifying climbing S's and spit out of the steep drop of South Bend. Of course, there's perhaps the most famous turn of Oak Tree, which has sadly lost its eponymous flora in real life, but is retained here in the virtual world. Let's not forget one of the scariest obstacles at the end of the lap, the roller coaster. The incredible speed drivers carry up into this blind braking zone is what causes it to require such immense bravery in order to get the most out of a lap. As you'd expect, the high number of corners makes passing rather difficult. Add in the fact that many of them are dangerously swift, and track position can wind up being a major factor in races. With the picturesque backdrop of the Appalachians around them, fans are not left wanting when they come to watch drivers face off at this historic track. It's no wonder the circuit has found success in its second chance at life. We see a little bit more about Virginia International Raceway, but with this being the full layout, the traditional layout that IMSA runs here, Nick, why don't you fill us in on what the drivers will be experiencing?
Yeah, they're going to have to experience the 17 turns that make up Virginia International Raceway, just over 5.5 kilometers or 3.25 miles. And a lot of drivers still are not too familiar with this track. But one thing that this track is known for is the fact that it is very difficult to get passes done. This track is fast, but the rolling Virginia hills make for some very tight areas of this circuit. One thing that might help these drivers today, though, is the car that they are in. IMSA normally only runs the GTLM and the GTD cars here in a race that has no prototypes. Today, we're going to see the GT4, a smaller car with a little bit less power. It's the one that is run in the IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge Grand Sport class that a lot of these drivers are familiar with. But that car, that's going to allow them for some more aggressive racing through parts of this track like the Horseshoe, through NASCAR Bend, through the old Oak Tree Corner and Hog Pen, to conclude a lap around here. But Joe, my number one warning for these drivers today is that to finish first, you must first finish. We've seen a number of drivers in the past, both in real life and in the sim, get tossed off of a VIR's snake and roller coaster ride.
Absolutely. It's a lot of runoff around here, but it's a lot of grass, so your car's not going to stop for a while as it slides through. Now, why don't we run over this race itself as we're getting ready for the qualifying here soon and go over our race details, of course. And we are in round 2 out of 3, just a short little season that we're running here. As was mentioned, it is the Porsche 718 GT4 Clubsport as runs and the Michelin Pilot Challenge in the real world. They have 10 minutes to qualify, but they only have 2 laps to try and complete and get a time in. But it is a 60-minute race. There shouldn't be any pit stops expected during that. And it is open setup. So hopefully the drivers have either been able to dig in and get the car set up themselves or maybe talk to their real world engineers to see if they could get some notes on what to do to get it running well out here today. Speaking of getting notes and speaking of the pit lane, we've got Peter McKay with us once again. Peter, welcome back. And you were telling us quite a bit about VIR and the incredible history it has here. 2 lives, as I mentioned, about this place. It's really a fascinating track.
It certainly is, and I think it's one of the most beautiful motorsporting venues anywhere on earth. And the passion of the circuit's owner, Connie Nyholm, and her previous business partner, Harvey Siegel, to resurrect this facility, but not just to get it back going again, but to turn it into arguably the premier motorsport facility anywhere in the world. But got going back in 1957. And the thing I love about this track is that the whole circuit was mapped by the contours of the land. And actually, many of the corners here are actually determined by the turning circle of a Mercedes 300 SL, which was the car used by the Strickland brothers to go around, and they would throw sandbags out the side of the car to map out the circuit. And well, the result is one of the finest stretches of tarmac anywhere on earth. And it's going to be a pleasure to see these drivers go flat out around it today.
Many of them have already taken to the track to put their first lap time in. In practice, we were seeing 151s for the quickest times, so they should have plenty to try and get it in. It will be similar to last week, though, what we saw, Nick, where it takes a bit to get those first times in, and they certainly don't want to screw up the laps the first time around, because they have those off tracks still, and boy, there's going to be some easy places to slip off that racing surface.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned just how much runoff there is here. The track is it's pretty far away from the walls. So if you go off in most corners, you should be all right. But in qualifying, that's the last thing you want to have to worry about, because one slip over the grass with just 2 tires or whatever it may be, you're done. Your lap is done, and they only get 2 laps around here as well. The one big part of this track that I'm watching for that to happen is through a roller coaster. The last couple of turns here, when they're going back up the hill, it's just such a blind crest, and these drivers carrying all the speed through there, they've got to be very careful when they make their way through there. Not only in qualifying, but again, we'll have to see that in the race.
Watching on board with Mason Filippi right now as he comes through to start his first time lap. He's going to get that green flag. This is a driver who actually races in a Hyundai Velocidor, the TCR class here in the Michelin Pilot Challenge, which is a step below what the GT4s run. So this is a nice little step up for him. Let's see how he can handle the rear-wheel drive car that we are in today. Filippi heads into the horseshoe, one of the few places where you can get a pass done. And then one of my favorite named corners, NASCAR Bend. Apparently so named because a bunch of famous NASCAR drivers went off back when this track was first open in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah, it's a fast left-hander. You might think that that's why it has that name, but no, you're right. That's exactly what gave NASCAR Bend the name. But it does drive a little bit like a NASCAR corner. It reminds me a little bit of Indianapolis, where you want to get the throttle down, but you just can't always hold it, especially when you're running side by side with a driver. I think that really describes a lot of the portions of VIR.
Yeah, that does for sure. Coming up to one of the more dangerous corners here through South Bend. Very blind, another left-hander as well. Look at him dip down through the valley and then up to the famous oak tree. Now, fans of modern times might notice that the oak tree is still there, and well, it's not in real life. Obviously, this is a bit of an older scan of Virginia International Raceway. Thankfully, we at least still have that icon with us in the virtual world. And once again, Nick, he picks up speed as this, I imagine, is probably one of the faster portions of the track, is it not?
Oh, it absolutely is. And, Filippi right now, he's just getting up to about a 150 mile an hour mark, just shy of 150 miles an hour there. That's going to be very close racing when you have guys side by side. We might even see a couple of slipstream passes there, a couple of slingshot maneuvers. They've just got to be so careful, because that track, it tightens up in a hurry after that.
All right, let's see what time he can put on the board. Now, despite the name, I'm sure some are thinking he's Italian that's come over and show how a traditional racing driver from a traditional racing country can do it. But he's actually from California, is Filippi. At his first time is going to be a 58.2 onto the board. Let's see who else we've got coming through. Brandon Kidd crosses the line but does not get a time. And Lafougue, who was very fast in the warm-up, goes up to the top of the sheets as well.
That doesn't surprise me too much about Gregory Lafougue. 2019 Pirelli GT4 America Sprint champion, and now he races in the IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge as well. He's got a lot of experience and some good experience on this channel as well. We've seen him race in the Porsche Owners Club.
Should see these times come down on the second lap as the tires tend to have to come in. It is pretty hot on the track surface today, by the way, 103 degrees Fahrenheit. So a little bit toasty, and drivers slipping and sliding around will not make life any easier here in Virginia. Peter, you brought up an interesting name here that I definitely hope that IMSA fans will recognize. It sounds like Hurley Haywood has quite a bit of history here, the multi-time 24 Hours of Daytona winner.
He certainly did, and of course Hurley Haywood probably most well known for his success behind the wheel of a Porsche, and of course that's the car that we're going to see on track today. But back in 1971, not all that long before the track closed after its first period of opening, he actually won the first ever IMSA GT race at VIR in 1971 with Peter Gregg in a Porsche 914, which I guess would be similar to the kind of modern day Cayman, I suppose.
That's true. And as we see more drivers coming across the line, Eric Palmer goes to 7th with a 2:02. Got a bit of time to make up. He must have had a mistake there because he's about 3 seconds off the next car of Matthew Hollander. Connor Bloom coming back around, and this will be his first timed lap. Remember, he's quick. Last time we saw him, what's the 95 got? It's a 58.3. Only going to be good enough for 5th, though.
I noticed that Andy Cantu went up the board as well, and Brandon Kidd. Oh, him and LaFougue just flip-flopped a little bit for that top spot on the board. Brandon Kidd in the 97, driver out of Syracuse, New York, went up there and almost stole that pull away.
Indeed, only a 10th between them right now, so this could be a tight one. It is a long way around, so a 10th is not much. In a place like VIR, watching Shelby Blackstock, former Indy Lights driver, coming across. His first lap didn't count, but this second one did, thankfully. That's going to be good enough for 7th.
Here's Michael W. Johnson as well, getting his first lap time up on the board. Or at least that's what he's going to try to do, and he does indeed. He goes to 11th. He's going to sit right in front of Michael R. Johnson.
Yep, for our viewers, there are 2 Michael Johnsons out here today. We'll try and clarify. There's Michael R. and Michael W. Try to keep you abreast of things on that. Andy Cantu, his second lap was mildly quicker, and actually, I shouldn't say mildly quicker, almost half a second. And that's going to put him up to 6th this time. Let's see who else we have in these final 2 minutes. Let's see, Michael W. can get around for his second lap. He's on it right now. This is Mikael Miller. And he comes to the line around this curved front stretch. 2 flat, 0.8. He's going to sidle himself into 14th with that lap. We're still waiting on one driver to at least get a time in. That's James Vance. He's coming down the backstretch currently.
James Vance, a former NASCAR Pinty's Series driver up in Canada. And he's got 2 podiums up in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship, up in the big series. So he's definitely got a lot of speed in that 32. He's just got to translate it here into the sim.
I love when we get drivers who come from diverse backgrounds. And Vance, as he comes up to the line, is just going to get time in. As long as this one didn't have an off track with about 1:30 left. Yes, he is. A 58.6. That's a decent one. Gets him into the top 10 for the time being. Next one across the line, Michael W. Johnson, hailing from Germany. But we heard from Peter last round that actually is an engineer on one of the NASCAR teams here. The driver with diverse
he certainly
background.
is. He works with the Toyota Joe Gibbs organization on last year's champion, the number 18 of Kyle Busch, who of course dipped his toe into IMSA competition at the wheel of a Lexus RCF GT3 at the Rolex 24 at Daytona this January.
We got only one driver left to put a time in, and I don't think he's going to make it around in time because it's Connor Bloom. He's got about 40 seconds left. So the 95 with him, let's see. Yeah, okay, he's coming up the snake. I don't think he's going to be able to make this for sure. So the San Diego driver is got his 1 lap in, and it's only going to be good enough for 8th. It's a bit of a shame to see him starting that far back, but maybe it'll give us some action throughout the race, since he's going to have to climb a bit if he wants to get up to the podium here today. So essentially, our grid is set. That is going to give us some time to go through here with our mini Michelin Pilot Challenge Series drivers and some of our WeatherTech Series drivers out here racing today. Gregory Lefougue, if I can get my mouth under control, is going to be starting on the pole. And Brandon Kidd, who is very nearly going to be on the pole, will be starting next to him. Let's see if he tries to be aggressive down into turn 1 to take that away. Nielsen Lawrence, hailing from Denver, will be starting in 3rd, followed by the driver we were watching much of the start of the qualifying, Mason Filippi, managed to put it into 4th. You got James French starting P5 today. Andy Cantu will be starting in 6th. We've got Shelby Blackstock, plenty of racing experience for him, not just Indy Lights, but also the IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge Series. And he is going to be starting in 7th. Connor Bloom will be to his outside in 8th position. Matthew Hollander, Porsche Owners Club driver, will be starting in P9, and James Van Snick will round out our top 10.
Absolutely. Right behind them, it's going to be Michael W. Johnson, that one we were just talking about with the Joe Gibbs Racing team. Alan Stad right behind in the number 12th position in the 619 rather. He's going to be right in front of James Pezic and Michael R. Johnson. Mikkel Miller, who we saw put a late time down in qualifying, is going to be starting right in front of our last driver on the grid, Eric Palmer, who comes over here from the IMSA Prototype Challenge Series.
16-car field that's going to be taking part here today. There you can see them lined up on the grid. I do not see the pace car, though, so I think we're going for a standing start here. Well, this is going to be even more fun as we get headed down into the horseshoe. Let's see how things play out. If anybody has practiced those standing starts here today, hopefully they were made aware. As we wait for the lights to come up, there they are. Engines start to rev. Green flag is out off the line. Lefougue looks pretty good. Kidd, though, not as strong as Lawrence, who's already looking up his inside as they start to fly down towards the horseshoe. A bit of a squeeze, and a car already off. That's Mason Filippi, who gets turned. Some more action as the other driver who got into him goes off. Someone sliding to the outside of the horseshoe. It's a messy start here for our drivers.
Yeah, that's James French, the one that got into him, and he came back across the track and slid off himself, like you mentioned. Connor Bloom was the one that punted him. He's the other one you saw, but back up front, it's Gregory Lefougue being hounded by Nielsen Lawrence for that top spot.
Had to go defensive down into the left hook. And so far, Lawrence is still climbing all over the back of him, nearly bumping the rear end of that Porsche. As they come through the snake, finally they get a brief respite, as it's going to go straight until they get to the climbing S's. Andy Cantu is in the dark blue that you see poking his nose out from 4th place, seeing if he can get onto the podium. They climb up the hill, back and forth through the S's, and then over South Bend. So far, so good for these top 5, but boy, there are a lot of drivers going off in the back. It looks like Alan Stad as well. More cars going off as we've got Mikkel Miller and Michael W. Johnson off in South Bend.
And we just had a huge wreck from Matthew Hollander as well. Yet problems all over the track here, Joe, especially for everyone back in that mid-pack. Everyone trying to get up to the front, and obviously many difficulties.
Remember, tires are cold at the start here, so maybe some of them did not anticipate the lack of grip in some of these corners. It is still Lefougue leading Lawrence. Kidd back in 3rd place now, having lost out to Nielsen. Then you've got Vance chasing in P4, and Cantu finishing out this 5-car breakaway. Look at them head through Hogpen to complete lap 1 up the front stretch.
It's going to be Gregory Lefougue who's going to lead that lap. He's got a bit of a gap back to Nielsen Lawrence, who's got a gap himself back to Brandon Kidd, the former ARCA driver who started up in 2nd. He's going to find himself in 3rd. And Joe, one thing to point out here is that these drivers, they do have a fast repair that they can use in this race. So a lot of them are going to be using that here early.
I have to imagine so. Thankfully, I don't think we saw too many hard hits among the drivers. We'll find out once we get back to the replay. We're sticking with these top 5 for the time being with how close they are trailing among one another. sounds like we do have a few that are visiting. Oh, down to the inside before we get to our pit reporter. Some door banging here. Brandon Kidd, unfortunately, making contact with Vance. Both of them off track. Kidd into the Armco.
Yeah, Vance tried to get in underneath him, and we'll see the replay here of what exactly happened. But James Vance in the 32, he had a clean shot underneath him, but just not enough room on the outside, apparently, for Brandon Kidd. After starting second, he's going to be spinning off into the grass here. Tough break for both of them.
Looks like he just kind of caught that curb, unfortunately. I wonder if that is what sent him in, unfortunately. Now we have a chance to go to Peter Mackay, as it looks like you've had some friends visiting you.
We certainly have. I've had the 477 of Matthew Hollander and the 40 of James Pesek coming to see me. Now, Hollander, he came in straight away, took his fast repair, and was able to get going again with one brand new, shiny Cayman GT4. Pesek, on the other hand, stayed in pit lane, so perhaps his damage was minor. He stayed in, took a new set of tyres as well, because the jacks went up. So Pesek still has his fast repair in hand if he needs it, but he has got a long way to catch up after a long time here in pit lane.
It looks like Eric Palmer has also taken a tow. He was involved in a little bit of a tangle in Oak Tree. Not sure if we need to go to that as we continue to watch our leaders. The 119 of Lafougue crossing once again, starting lap 3. Lawrence giving chase, though, and they are now absolutely dropping those behind him. Cantu, a whole 2.2 seconds behind.
Yeah, the only one I'm really seeing here is that guy right there, Nielsen Lawrence, who is really the only one that's being able to stick with Gregory Lafougue a little bit. I mean, I know that gap's been getting a little bit bigger, but Lawrence still seems like he's got the pace. The driver out of Denver, Colorado, looks to be on the move and maybe playing the long game here today.
Let's try and take a look at what happened at the start here. I know Vance was involved, was he not? Double checking.
He was the one that got into, there was one driver in front of him. I think that was Felipe you mentioned, Joe, that he got into.
That was, actually, no, that was Cantu. No, not Cantu. French was the one that made contact with him. 45 tipped him off, and then unfortunately for James, he found himself spinning out to the grass as well. There you can see he's recovered here on the replay.
Yeah, that track, I mean, it's just not too much room there, and we talked about how deadly that grass can be, especially on these cold tires.
We get to see this start. This would be a good onboard to watch from French, just to kind of see what happened. Admittedly, I think he got squeezed. I don't think he was really too much at fault. Yeah, look at this.
And the track is so twisty down there. It's so unpredictable, especially if you're on the inside, to know just how much room there is. And apparently for the reigning Asian Le Mans Series LMP2 champ, there wasn't enough room.
Yeah, I think he's not much to blame there. Just the gap ran out, even though he had a car in the gap already. As we continue to watch 5th place now, it is R. Johnson chasing W. Johnson, but he's not worried about what's ahead. He's worried about Vance, the 32, just behind him as he closes in. He's got a good slipstream. He's taking a look down to the inside. He's going to try and outbrake him. Not much of a fight going from R. Johnson. He's going to let him through and fall back to 6th.
I think a lot of these drivers have just seen just how much attrition has played in early in this race, and they just want to get to the end. We're still pretty early in this 60-minute race here, only on the 4th lap of action.
That means Bloom and Blackstock are now close behind Michael, as Blackstock trying to get closer up to Johnson. Unfortunately, had a little bit of a bad exit there. Now he looks better coming through the snake. We are on board with the 95 of Bloom. Looking ahead, he is very close at trying to get something away from Shelby here.
This track, it just demands momentum and consistency more than anything else. And there you can see just how much that shifted for Shelby Blackstock. He was about to lose a spot to Bloom, and all of a sudden he was all over the back of Johnson. But now they're going to go side by side as Bloom looks around the outside.
Nothing doing there. They hit the oak tree. That's a tricky one to get that pass done. Ooh, some wheel spin, though, from Blackstock there, getting on the throttle. Looks like it didn't hurt him too much, though, thankfully.
Yeah, and that's not the place you want to have any kind of wheel spin. They go down this long back straightaway here at VIR. You've got to keep that momentum up and that pace, especially when you're trying to chase down Michael R. right in front of him.
Ooh, a little bit of a look there from Bloom. Not able to make it stick. James French now approaching them as well on his recovery drive. Great exit there from Bloom. Still, this is a technical portion plunging down into the hog pen. He is stuck behind the number 8 of Blackstock. We've got a car getting out of the way. That's Palmer, who is a lap down, just letting them through.
This train of cars is going to go by them. Might hurt a little bit in the back, but here comes Shelby Blackstock looking underneath, and he's going to get it. Michael R. looks to have backed off just to let him by. I think that's going to hurt him, though, because here comes Connor Bloom as well.
Great opportunistic move. 3 of them going by. What a bad corner for Johnson, because now James French also sneaks up into a higher position through NASCAR Bend. Bloom is still not done. He may have gotten a spot, but he wants one more. He wants to be ahead of Blackstock. And so far, it seems like, Nick, he's got the pace. It's just he can't find the opening.
Yeah, and we know how fast Connor Bloom is. He started back in 8th today, but we have seen him compete quite a bit on this channel, especially recently. And, you know, even after going off early in this race, he's back on track and already trying to get all over the back of this number 8 car, Shelby Blackstock, as they go back uphill, trying to gain something on him, trying to keep that run going forward as Blackstock goes a little bit wide. That might open the door here for Connor.
He's certainly got a tough nut to crack, but Shelby is no slouch. Even if he doesn't have the pace that Bloom does, he's got 2 wins in the real-world TCR class for the Michelin Pilot Challenge. And look at that exit as he gaps Connor Bloom by a pretty wide margin. I'm sure Shelby is probably appreciative that we are highlighting his accomplishments in racing. Probably just as well known for being the son of Reba McEntire out here, but I'd say he's earning his way in racing, because this is one quick driver being up within the top 10, almost the top 5 here today.
Let's check back in on our leader, Gregory Lafougue, who is not easily been our leader in the last couple of laps, because Nielsen Lawrence has stuck right with him. There he is right behind. Lafougue has had the fastest lap of this race a couple of times now. You've seen pop up on the top right of your screen, but Nielsen Lawrence is not letting him get away yet.
So we hop on board with Lawrence. Still giving chase on Lafougue. You can see them taking a lot of curb around here as well. They certainly are brave in a few places, clattering over that. Start to pick up speed, almost 140 miles an hour before the car starts to weave back and forth. Another spot, look at them just climb all over those curbs. See if they can take it safely through South Bend. Both of them nice and tidy, but still not enough, as Nielsen is having to push just to hold on to the back of that 119.
Yeah, he's going to need a mistake or something here from the 119 of Gregory Lafougue, because he is quick around here, to say the least. He is, and you can already see him pulling away there, so there's not going to be any kind of slipstream help here for Lawrence this time by.
So as those two continue on the tail of one another, let's check back in with Blackstock, Bloom, and French, because these 3 are still very tightly contested, trying to sort out that 6th position. If they don't fight, though, Nick, they could catch up to the next pair in front of them. Vance and Johnson are only about a second and a half up the road.
Yeah, and their battle has been a lot more civil as well. They've really not been able to trade many spots. There you see Johnson is quite a ways ahead of James Vance right now. But you're right. If Shelby Blackstock can lead this train up there, I think that draft is going to help them to get up there and at least contend for what they're fighting for up there, which is 4th place.
So is Connor Bloom going to be willing to play nice and hold off so that they can try and catch them? Well, those 2 in front of them certainly aren't going to play nice, because Vance has got a run on Johnson. You can see him looking to the inside. That's Michael W. Johnson and the yellow Porsche holding off Vance and the black and white machine, who's going to slide it up the inside, breaking deep down into the horseshoe. Once again, not much of a defense from W. Johnson. So he falls back into 5th from that, and there's that gap down to nothing now, because that's Shelby Blackstock behind him.
Yeah, Blackstock has caught him. That battling helped them do exactly what you mentioned, Joe. And James Vance is going to be able to pull away. He loves watching this in his rear view mirror. But Shelby Blackstock all over that curb there, trying to get by him, but also at the same time trying to keep Connor Bloom behind him. No easy tasks here today at VIR.
Absolutely. It's amazing that Bloom has been held back this long with how close he's been riding behind that number 8. Let's see if he can do anything on the way up to Oak Tree, as once again they snake through. Don't forget about James French. Oh, that was a mistake there from Blackfoot. Managed to elicit something he was waiting a long time for around the outside of South Bend. Connor Bloom finally into 6th.
Yeah, I've seen Shelby Blackstock go wide there a couple of times. That time it was really bad. He's lucky that car didn't snap on him. He's lucky that all he lost in that transaction was Connor Bloom getting by him. We're right on board with the James French now.
Moving up ahead of them, I think Michael W. Johnson might have something for Vance. No, he backs out of it. He was right underneath the rear wing of the number 32. He had used the slipstream well. There you can see them now as they brake for the roller coaster. Heading back downhill, all 5 in a line. This is essentially a battle for 4th.
A battle for 4th going on, while the battle for the lead getting a bit closer. Nelson Lawrence is starting to apply more and more pressure up on Gregory LaFougue for that top spot.
Yeah, you can see only separated by a couple tenths here. It's down to 2 tenths into the first corner, but it has increased back to about half a second. He is certainly putting his foot down, the 302, trying everything he can to try and do what we saw Bloom do to Blackstock, just rattle him enough to get a mistake.
He's got time.
And experience. He's been racing since he was 16 years old. In fact, he joined the Porsche Owners Club at the age of 15. So clearly been wheeling a car for quite some time, pretty much as soon as he was allowed, it seems. Can do off of Oak Tree. Looked like he had a decent exit, but as they start to pick up speed, that yellow and red car is disappearing a little bit.
Yeah, you'd think that would kind of reel him back in, but and even this draft you would think would reel him back in a little bit, but Gregory LaFougue has just been outstanding when it comes to corner exit today, and I think that is one of the biggest reasons he's been able to keep this lead so dominantly.
And we had contact, it sounds like, between Bloom and Blackstock. I'm trying to figure out when this happened. No, it was with Johnson.
Yes. Oh, wow. Big contact because Johnson went around.
This was about a minute ago. Into NASCAR Bend, 3 cars involved. Michael W. Johnson got the worst of it. Bloom and Blackstock kept going, with Blackstock having the upper hand in 5th right now. Already a little bit of damage on that car, and there goes Johnson.
Connor Bloom was already missing his right side mirror, and now he's missing both, I believe.
Sounds like Peter's been able to get a little bit of a look at the cars after that and hear what's going on. Peter, what's the damage seem like? Because I know you were following this a lot closer than we were when it happened.
Well, I just saw Michael W. Johnson in the number 18 car just go blasting by me at the pit lane here. So whatever damage he has, he obviously thinks it's not bad enough. It might take a couple of laps for him to analyze his lap times to see if he needs to come in and use his fast repair. So I'll keep an eye on him and see how he goes. But do you know what's really ironic is that accident there was a carbon copy of Trent Hinman in the number 7 Volt Porsche Cayman in last year's Michelin Pilot race at VIR, where there was a controversial incident on the final lap in that very same corner. So it must be something about Porsche Caymans at turn 4.
Bit of a curse there. Maybe it'll change names from NASCAR Bend as we come back to these 4. And look at them once again, everybody pushing.
Oh, James Vance.
Oh, and Vance is off at South Bend.
That was a big slide.
Way to keep calm. Well, I thought he was going to keep calm. No, he goes across the track. He narrowly avoids the tires on the other side. Got to pick it up. Got to keep it on the black stuff. He eventually does. The 32 loses another position to Michael R. Johnson now that he's finally back on track.
And he's still spinning.
Yeah,
We'll
he
take a look at this, but
just made contact with the wall just now. We're watching the replay. He lost it yet again. Peter, I know you were talking that tires might be a big point of contention. Oh, too much curb there. Coming out of the S's, and that's what sent him off. But yeah, Peter, I wonder if he cooked those tires the way that he just never seemed to gather the car up.
Well, this VIR layout is an incredibly physical track, both for the driver, but also for these Michelin tyres on this little Cayman GT4. It does have traction control and ABS to help you out, but there is a limit of what the tyres can take. And 60 minutes round here is a long time. We won't be in danger for fuel with the Cayman because it can go for about an hour and a half on a tank. But for tyres, it's going to be a real challenge for our drivers to keep these Michelins going right to the end.
So we first had 5, then there were 4, and now there are 3. As a little look to the inside from Bloom down at a NASCAR bend doesn't produce fruit. Blackstock is still in 4th. Bloom's still chasing him, and it's James French behind the duo now. But are they going to continue to dwindle? Is this going to be a case of attrition?
Connor Bloom has certainly survived quite a bit of attrition so far.
Yeah, and so is Blackstock, you have to say, as well. As they come up through the S's once more. None of them are anywhere near the podium, by the way. We haven't talked about them a whole lot except for Lafougue and Lawrence, who are still hovering at about a half a second apart. But Andy Cantu, 24 seconds ahead of Blackstock, and we are only 20 minutes into this race. So all this tussling about among them, as we take a look at Cantu, has unfortunately cost them a lot of time.
Yeah, how about Andy Cantu? He's a driver over in the Lamborghini races in IMSA, and man, like you said, he's got a 24-second lead over this battle for 4th place, but he's 8 seconds behind that battle for the lead.
The Super Trofeo Series is what he races in. Finished 4th at Barber Motorsports Park. Clearly showing he's got the speed, and especially has got the chops to keep the car clean, because he's kept out of trouble enough that he is this distance ahead of these 3 that we continue to watch. Sounds like Vance has called it a day. We're getting some updates here from Peter.
Yes, James Vance, the number 32, he had quite a lengthy tow back to the pit lane and a lot of damage. And of course, with the iRacing fast repair, that wouldn't have caused him too much of a problem, and he could have perhaps even put on some new tyres and try to work his way back up the field, but obviously felt that it was too much of an ask, and that's his day over, unfortunately.
Day is just beginning for French and Bloom. They're side by side through the first set of corners, now through NASCAR bend, and they're going to bank doors yet again. 2 wheels off in the grass. French is not giving this one up, but the apex decides it for him, as the shorter line helps Bloom to sneak back into P5. This is allowing Blackstock to get some breathing room. So they have been distanced. Connor Bloom goes from the attacker to the defender.
Yeah, I was just about to mention that Shelby Blackstock is seeing this all happen behind him. Maybe Blackstock can start to chip into Cantu's big gap over them that he's got for the podium, but it's going to take quite a bit. And still, you see Connor Bloom coming back with a vengeance already. He's pulling a gap on James French, who would love to get around him. Had his opportunity there, but the elbow's out. It went to Connor Bloom's favor.
All that's fighting on these Michelin tires, you have to wonder at what point do the drivers use up the best of them. Not even halfway through this thing, and we're seeing some slipping and sliding around. The temperature's not gone down. Well, not much, I should say. It's 97 degrees Fahrenheit. So they've gotten at least a little bit of cooler conditions on the track surface, but things are certainly going to continue to be quite tricky out there, I imagine.
And you mentioned, or you just saw at the top of your screen, Gregory Lafougue set another fastest lap, as looks like we're going to have a pass for 9th place maybe. Alan Stad and Brandon Kidd are side by side, and Stad is going to stay out in front of Brandon Kidd. Both of these drivers struggling with some early race contact. Actually, I don't think Stad got into anything. I think he's just making his way up through the field. But Brandon Kidd, he started second. He's certainly on a fight back up through the field.
Yeah, Stad started in 12th and is up to 9th. Kid going the reverse from the front row down to 10th, unfortunately. Here's the pass between the two of them.
It was
Stad
just
side by side.
yeah, just a nice slingshot.
Yeah, seriously got some speed as he was trying to go by Eric Palmer, who we didn't see it on screen, but Palmer just went off trying to let them through. Been a bad day for Eric in that number 15. Already a lap down. Palmer is one of the drivers from the Prototype Challenge series, but also races in the GT4 Cup and the Global Mazda MX-5 Cup in the Pirelli GT4 Challenge. Going back to 4th place. Bloom now ahead of Blackstock. Now let's take a look at that. Wow, aggressive move coming out of the horseshoe. He likes NASCAR bend.
Yeah, apparently, and we've seen some drivers not like that too much tonight, but yeah, wow, you're right. Aggressive there, right up the inside perfectly.
Oh, as we come back live, they're off.
Oh,
they're off. Blackstock and Bloom, it finally came to a head into roller coaster. And it was Blackstock trying to get side by side into the corner. He did so successfully. That's a fast entry, though, there, Nick. I think it was just two cars trying to go into one. Wasn't working.
It's such a blind corner as well. It's hard to tell where the other driver is. And Connor Bloom, I think he tried to shut the door. I think he was expecting Blackstock to get off the acceleration there just a little bit. But I mean, that's exactly what James French has been waiting for this entire race. He's going to sail on right past him.
Yeah, and now that the car is gone by pit lane, I think Peter's managed to have a look at the car. What kind of damage are you seeing as we take a glance at the battle for 8th here on screen?
Well, I've just seen the number 95 of Connor Bloom just go flying past me here on pit lane, but that car looks very second-hand indeed, and looks like that car is not at 100% whatsoever, which is strange when you have that fast repair to use. You know, we're past halfway now. I would have come in and just taken that fast repair and got going again. But yeah, we'll need to see if Connor Bloom comes in, because he's got a lot of damage on that Cayman.
Michael W. now on the back of Brandon Kidd. W pretty much where he started. He gridded in 11th. He's in 10th right now, so trying to go one better as we ride on board with him with the helmet cam.
Well, while Peter was talking there about the damage he was seeing on pit road, we saw a couple of big wiggles out of the 97 of Brandon Kidd. I wonder if he's struggling with that damage in just the handling. I'm wondering if his suspension is off
that's
track.
Stad off. I think that's
so a
the
freebie.
second time we've seen Stad do that. Yeah. Just got a little loose on the exit of South Bend. Let's take another look at it. This is different from what we saw from Vance. Didn't go off on the right, just on the left. He avoided contact, and he's trying to follow the arrow signs back to the track at the same time, avoiding the cars as he re-enters. He was able to get it going. He only lost a little bit of time. Don't think he got too much damage through the grass there.
I don't think you could put more than a piece of paper between the back of his car and the tire barrier there. He was so close to hitting that outside retaining wall and having that car whip around on him. But you're right, he kept out of getting any kind of damage, it looks like.
So that allows Johnson and Kidd to continue things, but it looks like Kidd has no interest in continuing this fight. The 97 has stretched away here into 8th place and has got himself a handicap of about 0.6 of a second. That's about the same gap that we've been seeing between Lafougue and Lawrence. There they are on your screen now. That is Lafougue in the yellow and red car. Lawrence behind him in the black machine with the white stripe going down the side. They have not been separated by more than a second pretty much this entire race. How much, Nick, do you think, is this Lawrence just like holding station, or is this as fast as he can go?
Yeah, it's so hard to tell, honestly. The former GT5 champion, Nielsen Lawrence, he's trying to get his GT4 car up there and around Gregory LeFougue. But you're right. I don't know if he has the pace and he is just hanging back there, maybe playing a little bit of the longer game here. And he's thinking about striking, towards the end, maybe 5 laps to go or so. Or maybe he is desperately getting racing the wheels off that thing right now. It's so hard to tell with all of these drivers, of course, very experienced, very veteran of drivers. Now they're over here putting their skills up to the test in iRacing. And Nelson Lawrence, we'll have to wait and see if he falls off. Maybe that's a little bit of tire conservation back there as well. We'll just have to wait and see what he's able to do with Gregory LeFougue here later on.
What impresses me, Nick, is even though we've had a few messy moments here in this race, we've only had one retiree, and that is Vance. Everybody else still going, and only 2 of them are a lap down. That's Pesek and Palmer out there. Everybody's still on the same lap as these 2 we see on screen.
Yeah, they all know that it's a long 60-minute race, and they all know they've got a shot at something here. And like you mentioned, everyone, with the exception of James Vance, who just had too much damage, everyone out there on track, and not too many people are out of this yet. If LeFougue and Lawrence got into it, Andy Cantu, he's been sitting all by himself. As you mentioned, James Pesek actually just put it in the walls pretty hard.
Let's see if we can get a replay on Pesek here. This looks very similar to what we saw earlier in South Bend from Stad. In fact, it's almost a carbon copy, except he didn't get away with it the way that Stad did.
Yeah, Stad was able to keep driving through the grass. Pesek just had a little too much speed there. He had lost all handling, and I believe, Peter might know the answer to this, but I believe Pesek has already taken his fast repair. This might be our 2nd retirement of this race.
Actually, Pesek was one who was in pit lane for quite a while, so it might be that he has that fast repair left. But looking at him on screen now, he's probably going to have to take a tow to get back to pit lane. So I'll keep you posted on that one.
I've not seen him in the session anymore. I think he may have already taken it to the garage, unfortunately.
He has, yes. James Pesek is now a confirmed retirement. He was running quite far back in the pack anyway, so yes, his day is over. Just a quick update on Connor Bloom. He is running about 2 or 3 seconds a lap off the pace of what he's capable of, so it's really he's really in the balance of whether to come in and take his fast repair and then maybe put a set of tires on and then go for it from there, or to just limp it home to the end. I'll keep an eye.
We've also had another incident, Eric Palmer this time, and I have done this myself before. This was in the S's. He finds the Armco just below those condos. They're right to the outside of the track, and he smacks this barrier.
Yeah, there's so much weight shift through the S's that he's carrying left and right and left and right. Hard on the tires, hard on the steering as well for that car. And it's so easy to make a mistake like he did right there. Just a little bit too loose to the left, and that is a hard lick, like you said, into that Armco barrier.
At least for Palmer, he did that out of 15th place. I can tell you, Nick, I've spun that in that exact same fashion out of the lead in a Lotus 49 race, and
oh no,
I was very upset, to put it mildly.
I would imagine even out of 15th place, I'd be upset, and I believe we'll have to keep an eye on him. I don't know. Actually, no, I believe he is staying on track. I was going to say he's going to retire, but no, he's still on track out there. But man, look at this for 7th.
Yeah, close fight here, and this is Michael R. Johnson leading Brandon Kidd and Michael W. Johnson. Get ready, we'll try and keep a track of who is where between these. Oh, and there's another off through the S's, another car into the metal Armco. That was Michael R. Johnson, unfortunately, also getting a little bit too loose.
Yeah, we're down to 1 Michael Johnson now, I think. That was he had all 4 wheels off the ground at a couple different points of this wild ride. He took that pink car straight into the wall and got it back out on track, still rolling, but all that time, all that ground is all lost.
Credit to Porsche. They make a very robust car.
Oh, yeah.
I can't believe that car's still going.
And Michael W. is getting around Brandon Kidd right now as well. That is for 7th place now.
Michael W. Johnson up to 7th with that move into the roller coaster. Again, he started in 11th place. This has been a phenomenal run here for the number 18, but he might lose the spot back. Here they come up the front stretch. Even though there's damage on the front of Kidd, looks like he's got good speed. He's going to pull to the inside. Can he get this one done? Wheel to wheel, it's a drag race and a game of chicken into the braking of the horseshoe. Brandon Kidd a little bit stronger. He's got the inside, parks it on the apex. Kidd gets back into 7th.
He does, but this track switches back in Johnson's favor. Is he able to get the run? Oh, Kidd a little bit wide, but I think he was just setting up the next turn. I don't think Johnson's going to be able to get back to him just yet for that spot.
Fierce fighting here in the mid-pack. He talked about it, that it's a long race, and they know there's still stuff up for grabs if they keep it together. So there you see that trio continuing on. That is Kidd in 7th, W. Johnson in 8th. Alan Stad still going and in 9th place. I'm watching Stad racing in the Porsche Owners Club iRacing Series as well. Coming over here, seeing how he can fare against a bunch of professionals. Of course, I shouldn't say it that way. Stad himself is definitely a professional himself. Formerly competed in drag racing as well. I talked about a variety of racing experiences. Alan,
yeah,
obviously coming in from just loving motorsports in general.
Yeah, you mentioned the drag racing experience he's got. Maybe that's why he's able to close in so much on these long straightaways.
Yeah, just understands that tire grip. That's important, making sure you don't get too much slip coming off the corners. It certainly seems to be helping him as he's still in 9th, even after having had multiple issues and started in 12th. So he's on a net gain. See if he can do anything off of this important corner through hog pen. Climbing straightaway, sort of a straightaway at least, up to the pit straight and across the line. Not going to gain anything here, though.
Yeah, it looks like these guys have calmed down just a little bit. I am amazed, Joe, that Nielsen Lawrence, for this lead, has still not let Gregory LeFougue out of his sight. Not one bit. Actually, this might be the biggest gap right now. 1 second down the straightaway, but maybe a little bit of traffic going to help him here as they are coming up on Eric Palmer, who's 1 lap down.
Indeed, and they might catch him in a good place, though. As long as Palmer is quick enough here through the hog pen. It looks like he's struggling a little bit. He's shallow. I think if he knows to pull over, LeFougue shouldn't be slowed down. And indeed, he holds his racing line. Nicely done by Palmer. He's going to let one go. Is Lawrence going to be able to also get by? Yes, it looks like he is.
And thankfully, just in time for Lawrence to get to the outside of the track. I was afraid he was going to have a shallow entrance into turn number 1. Not something you want to have to deal with, especially when you're chasing down Gregory LeFougue for the lead.
Now, we've had Peter updating us on the pace of some of the cars that have been suffering from damage out there. Peter, who is not doing quite as well as guys like Stad currently with multiple incidents that we've seen out on track?
Yes, the main one is Michael R. Johnson, who's been involved in a couple of clashes. At the moment, he's running about 6 seconds a lap off his ultimate pace, and I believe he still has his fast repair to use. So really, he should be coming in to use that fast repair, because you've just got to stop and go, basically, and get back out on the track, and still got plenty of time to recover that time with a fast race car.
That was Felipe that we saw on screen that went by him. Remember, Felipe got turned a little bit when there was a coming together on the first lap, first corner, even before the first corner, you could say. But Felipe, the Californian, is up to 10th now. Started 4th, so probably not going to be that pleased with that result if that's where he winds up. He's still got a ways to go. It's 13 seconds to get up to Stad. I'm curious what his pace is compared to him. Let me check on that as he crosses the line. Felipe running 57.8. 58.3, 58.6. Stad, 59.6, 58.6. Oh, actually, he is catching on Stad, so this is not out of the cards.
Definitely not. I believe we had another change for position. Matthew Hollander just got around Mikkel Miller. This is quite a ways back in 11th place, but that is 11th place, and instead of 12th because Michael R. Johnson had gone to the pits as well. We've got a replay of that.
That Hollander is the one who runs actually that e-racing series for the Porsche Owners Club. Miller really didn't have an answer. He's in the light blue car. To the inside, that is Hollander. And a very smooth move. Matthew's been on a tear in that POC series, having some good finishes lately. So up to 11th now. Now, he gridded in 9th, so he's actually down from where he started. Trying to climb back forward.
And the one he got around as well, Michelin Miller. That's another driver that's been on a run forward. Michelin Miller started back in second to last, back in 15th. He's up to 11th. And this is a driver who has a lot of experience in the IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge. But he's also got some experience recently, it sounds like, in the Prototype Challenge. He ran at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park last year.
Indeed. Now, we've got some word on Michael R. Johnson from Peter Mackay. What is going on with the number 22?
He is back on the move. I think he might well be listening to our GSRC coverage, because it was only just after I'd said he should be coming in, he took my advice and he came in, took his fast repair and got back going again in the number 22 car. So I will keep an eye on his pace and see if he should have listened to my advice or not. It would be the first time.
Yeah, he's 20 seconds behind the next car. That's Miller, who we were just talking about earlier, and he is a lap down from the leaders, unfortunately. We're down to 12 drivers on the lead lap. Speaking of those two, it's come back down from about a second to 7/10 of a second. Nothing dire quite yet. They're getting ready to lap Palmer one more time, though they are approaching him in a lot twistier bit here. You mentioned it before, Nick. They catch him here, this could be the opportunity that Lawrence needs, but he's going to need to be closer than that, I think. Oh, and actually, Palmer's spinning, almost parking it on track.
Oh, that's a close call. That is code brown for Gregory Lefougue.
On board from one of those two. The last thing you want to see is the leader, is the lapped car having issues right in front of you.
Absolutely. This is a scary moment for Lefougue, and it's not even like it's one of the wider parts of the track. Oh, and that car was even sliding back in reverse too. So great job for Lefougue to just sneak through there.
Really impressed. There was no panic, it seemed, outwardly at least, for Lefougue as we rode on board. Just held on until it was clear which was the open lane, and he actually has increased the gap. Lawrence is a whole second behind now. And they've got no worries from behind. Andy Cantu is 12.3 seconds back. Cantu, though, credit where credit is due. This is a podium. If he can just continue plugging away, he's got to do it for 20 minutes, though. And there is no one nearby him. He is just basically trying to focus on his own race.
Yeah, quite honestly, this has been probably the most consistent drive we've seen today. Is the one out of the 13 of Andy Cantu. He's been quick as well. He's 35 seconds now ahead of James French. He's been pulling a gap over that battle, or what used to be a battle behind him, and he hasn't been losing too much over the leaders. Now back to about 12 seconds behind him.
Gotta say, this is a case of old age and treachery, beating out all the youth and verve that some of these younger drivers have, because he is close to turning 40 years old. In fact, will in November of this year.
He's got the experience. I was looking down through the lineup, Joe. Some of these guys are racing. You know, they're younger than me. They're out there racing there in the IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge. It's incredible. And they're over here and still getting schooled by Gregory Lefougue.
It stops being less shocking once you hit your mid-30s and you kind of expect everyone to be younger and faster than you. As we watch Greg work his way up the hill one more time. Not too many laps to go, but as I mentioned, down to 18 minutes left. It's such long laps with 10 laps to go. Got to keep your focus. It almost seems like the tires may be coming back to the drivers a bit, because we saw so many going off for a while, but it seems like things have calmed down a little bit.
Well, especially, I mean, Gregory Lafougue seems to be getting faster and faster. This is about to be a 2-second cap, it looks like. I wonder if he was saving just a little bit. Maybe we were wondering if Nielsen Lawrence was saving something. I'm thinking it was Gregory Lafougue saving something here for the end.
Yeah, the Coloradoan just does not have the pace here in the latter stages of the race. I think the real test, though, is going to be back to Cantu. If he starts dropping back to that number 13, then it might be a worry. But at worst, you have to say Nielsen is just looking at a second place.
Yeah, exactly. And it's been an outstanding second place today as well. He's been clean, consistent, and he's put forth a great effort up there for that lead spot. I'm looking around the track. I think the closest battle we've got right now is for 6th place Connor Bloom, who is dealing with a lot of damage. He's being chased down by Brandon Kidd, who's also got some damage, but a little bit different kind.
Yeah, remember we were watching Bloom fighting for higher positions earlier. That was with Blackstock and French. Well, ever since the coming together. Oh, and is Cantu in pit lane?
Oh, he is.
Sorry, Andy Cantu has come down to Peter McKay. Peter, do you have any information on what happened here?
Well, he's just come in and taken a kind of what would look like a stop-go, which usually means using up a fast repair. So he must have had some form of altercation because he wasn't in long enough to take tyres.
It's incredible. I'm trying to take a look back through where he might have, I don't know, hit a curb too hard or hit a wall or something, and I see absolutely nothing.
He's
the
come out
incredible
ahead
thing,
of French. Though, yeah.
Well, yeah, he hasn't lost any spots here.
I think that's why. I think he pulled the whole F1 strategy here. If you've got the gap, take fresh tires. You're not going to lose a position. You make yourself safe. So I think he just, this is great heads up if this is the case, because he just saw, well, you know what, no, the car doesn't feel good. Just come in and get fresh rubber and have a nicer time to the end of this race.
And worst case scenario at this point, it doesn't pay off, right? So, I mean, he's still got a podium if he can keep these last couple of laps, last 9 or 10 laps or so clean. Great. I agree. Great strategy there by Andy Cantu. You might as well take a shot at.
So he's going to have fresh tires. It's going to take a bit to get up to temperature, but once he is, they should be a rocket ship out there. Oh, and sounds like he may not have taken tires, though, because it is a short stop. Well, this is bizarre.
He probably took a fast repair. I don't know if Peter's got any more information. I didn't take a look at that pit stop when he was down there.
Yeah, I was just looking back at the replay there with Andy Cantu, and he was in pit. He was parked in his pit box for at the very most 10 seconds, which in these little Cayman GT4s, to my understanding, is not long enough to get even 2 new tyres on. So perhaps it might have just been to repair an issue that he might have had earlier in the race, maybe contact that he's been carrying along. And like you say, he's not going to catch the leaders, but had enough room to come in and just take a quick repair. So, or he might have been short on fuel. You never know.
That's true too. A quick repair does not take much time here in iRacing. And for those not familiar watching for the first time on this simulator, a quick repair is essentially a spare car, a completely whole and fresh spare car. He puts another lap there on Palmer that we see. So that's what we are talking about in terms of that. I'm guessing it's a slight shortage on fuel for those 6.7 seconds. That's the only thing I can think that would explain it. So we head up to the leaders. Traffic for Lafougue, but he's pulled such a gap now, it's almost a non-issue for him. Lawrence is 2.3 seconds back.
Yeah, but Lafougue still, this is not where he wants to deal with traffic. That's Mikkel Miller. This is a tight part of the track. We've seen lots of accidents up here today so far, and a little bit of contact. He's gonna put him in the wall. He's gonna spin him.
Hard hit into the tires. Wonder if that caused any damage there for Lafougue. Miller he wasn't fighting anyone. There's no reason to hold him up.
I don't see any damage, and I don't know if Lafougue, intentionally got into him or not. I don't believe he did. That's such a, there's so many hills over there, so much terrain through a couple of these turns at VIR. It's so hard to tell where you're braking and where the car in front of you is braking. think he just ended up giving him a little bit of a tap, and that was enough to send him into the grass. But as far as the damage goes on the 119, I don't see too many issues on the front end of Lefug's Porsche.
I don't either. We're watching Miller. This looks like getting a spare car himself here. I think Peter's got a closer look.
Yeah, I can confirm Michael Miller coming in and taking his fast repair, and the car is up on the jack, so he is taking 4 new Michelin tyres to get him to the end of this race.
Big thanks to Mr. Mackay for keeping us up to date, up and down the pit lane. He's certainly had plenty of exercise today. And there you can see Miller coming back out. And he will return incredibly ahead of Eric Palmer. Now, Bloom and Kidd, who separated briefly, have returned to this fight for 6th place. We ride on board with Kidd, and he's got good straight line speed. Look at this. Bloom might be under threat. He knows it. He's going to cover off the inside as they come down into the horseshoe. They get to the braking zone, and Bloom, though, mighty on the binders, maybe a little too mighty. He slips to the outside, going for the over-under. Kidd trying to make the overtake. The 97 might just have it done, and there it is.
Oh, I don't think it's going to be over, though, because Connor Bloom might have an opportunity to get back at him. They've got this left-hander coming up, and then it's the tight turn 5. He might try the over-under himself. No. Brandon Kidd going to be the one shutting the door that time as they go up through the S's.
That'll give Kidd 6th place once again. Still, you said it. Bloom's not giving up. He's coming back at him as he follows in the slipstream to the climbing S's. This has been a trouble zone. If you've got a damaged car, if the handling is off, that's got to be scary up through there. Now through South Bend. Both of them through clean. Watch from Bloom's perspective here. See him pick up speed as they come off of Oak Tree. Already over 100 plus. Amazing. The elevation change in this track. Even though it's a long straight, you really can't see much down the way. Up and over the crests. That's Mikel Miller in front of them. Miller's already had problems with lappers coming by as he figured out how to get out of the way this time. He's not going to quite be caught here in Hogpen like he was before.
Oh,
but he spins.
Well, he's going to get out of the way a little bit different way, and he's going to spin off the track, thankfully. There you see him in the tire barrier. Mikel Miller having a tough second half of this race.
And the virtual corner workers have become familiar with this car because he just put it right in the exact same spot he was before. Wonder if he's going to call it a day after that one.
The poor guys out there, they have to keep replacing that tire barrier.
He's making sure that they have a job, right?
Oh, of course.
Miller stays out, though. It's one hardy car. As we continue to watch this fight down through the left hook, Bloom in the red and black machine, still chasing the blue car of Brandon Kidd. You know, we mentioned Bloom not quite qualifying where we expected out of him. And he's up to 7th after starting this race in 8th. It's not been the best of races we've seen from Connor. Still, I have to say, he's been full of grit today as he's not been willing to give it up.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, just looking at his car, you can see that that's the case. He's missing both of his mirrors. His hood has been bobbling over the bumps. Looks like he's jacked up a little bit in the front. He's all beat up.
And in fact, is that the hood we can see kind of wavering? That's not got to be good for his aerodynamics. But you don't need mirrors when all you do is look forward, which seems to be what Connor's doing today. Right now, looking forward, it's not going to net him a position, at least on the stretch up to the roller coaster. Not close enough to Kidd? Whoa. I didn't think he was close enough to Kidd, at least.
I think Kidd agreed with you. I don't think he expected a late dive there from Bloom. He got on the brakes a little bit more, maybe just a little bit more conservatively for Kidd there. And, you know, his car looks a little bit better, but he's also still dealing with a bit of front end damage.
So So as Connor Bloom chases him down into the horseshoe. Talked about it. Kid coming from ARCA competition, racing late models. Should be used to driving a car with damage, the way that short track racing goes in those things. How well does he defend, though?
I see him taking just a little bit different of a line. He's trying the later apex through these twistier bits, through the left hook, or through NASCAR bend and left hook.
Now heading up through the snake. Bloom's keeping him honest, making sure that he's got to work for it. Kid, after starting on the front row, is in 6th position. He's got 14 seconds to make up to Blackstock, but he's only got 6 minutes to do it, 7 minutes really. So I doubt we'll be seeing him take a position unless someone in front makes a critical error. I'll go through the oak tree one more time. We're down to 11 cars on the lead lap. Matt Hollander is the last of those currently, being chased by Greg LeFougue.
Yeah, he's going to be, I think he's definitely going to have to give up that lap by the time this race is over, because on board now with Gregory LeFougue, our overall leader, still in this race around the oak tree and up on the back straightaway. You'll see Hollander move over to the right here. I don't know if that's a little bit just to get out of the way, or I don't believe so just yet. It's going to give LeFougue a little bit of a tow, though.
I think it's just to make his intentions known early on.
Yeah.
We had a change for 8th position. Ninth position rather. Filippi and Stad. Let's take a look at that one. That took place in this very spot, actually. Filippi, I mentioned, was trying to come back through. He did catch Stad, which, if I recall, that was a 13-second gap, was it not? At one point?
Yeah, I believe it was. Filippi's been crawling back up through the field, and he's done a great job of it.
So Mason up to P9 with a nice little move. I can tell you that LeFougue did go by Hollander without too much drama. He's by on the front stretch now. Lawrence 2.3 seconds back. He's got to deal with him. This might be a little bit harder, though, because Hollander is going to be caught here either in the snake or in the climbing S's.
And that's not an easy place to pass anyone, especially not a, it's certainly not an easy place to pass a car you're battling for position with, but even lap traffic, if they're not careful, this could wreak havoc for them.
Not catching it as quickly as I anticipated. Of course, it's taken about an hour for Holland to be caught by him, so pace should be a little bit closer than we've seen previously. The blue flags here are not like F1 rules. They are strictly informational.
Well, just a quick look at all of the driver resumes and bios that we have here, Joe. I mean, it's hard to say that anyone here is, slow or off the pace.
Exactly. Yeah.
Everyone here, everyone's out there fighting with quite a lot of talent.
The Hollander's still not going to give that one up. He's just going to stay put. Hollander's not fighting with anybody, and not even by the merest stretch of imagination. He's 20 seconds behind Stad and 28 seconds ahead of Michael R. Johnson. So if he wanted to, he could give this up, and it really would not cause him any dire consequences. But I think he's content running his own pace, knowing that he's not holding up Nielsen Lawrence, at least for the time being.
Well, if Lawrence is going to make a late run to this victory, which is it's a bit of a long shot at this point. Yeah. He's going to need to go quickly, and there you go. Hollander's going to back out of the way because Lawrence knows that we've only got a couple laps to go, it looks like.
That's the universal signal of that's enough of that. Let me through. Lawrence still in second place as we take a look at Gregory LeFougue. Going to get the white flag next time by. Actually, that might be close. seeing about 2 minutes 50 left here.
I believe it'll be the white flag. Yeah, I think by the time he gets it. Gregory LeFougue is hoping so. That's one less lap that he's gonna have to avoid making a mistake.
Proving that his championship in 2017 for the World Challenge Series was no fluke. This is a very fast driver. Also the Sprint X champion in the GT4s in 2019. This is a guy that knows how to wheel a real car and virtual cars. Some of those skills translate quite well. It's not always the same, as we've seen from many real drivers coming in recent times here to give their hand at iRacing. Close enough for Greg that he is not going to demolish the field, but certainly show them how it's done.
He's certainly making his boss over at Stephen Cameron Racing proud. He drives the Aston Martin over there in the IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge, and he's looking like he's going to be able to get another win today on his career resume, but it'll be a little bit different. Like you said, this is iRacing, and he's got one more lap to do it looks like.
Indeed, you're right. That is the white flag. LeFougue now 3 seconds ahead of Lawrence, which with Cantu having his pit stop multiple laps ago, he's 39 seconds behind in third place. In fact, he hasn't even taken the white flag yet. On board with Cantu. Up and past the pit entry. White flag being waved.
That's incredible that he was able to come in. I mean, that's just how big this track is, how big the gaps are. Cantu was able to come in the pits and keep this podium.
Back to LeFougue. Mimicking the real-world Michelin Pilot Challenge Series, I'd say that Gregory LeFougue is one that is going to enjoy this one. Had to work, had to push to manage to keep Lawrence behind him. It was down to 0.2 of a second at times. Nielsen making sure that the pressure was on. 119 is certainly made of some stern stuff as he comes up to the roller coaster for the final time in this race. 60 minutes of racing here at Virginia International Raceway. I asked who could manage to handle it best among our 16 competitors. The answer today is going to be in this number 119 vehicle. Gregory LeFougue out of the final corner and to the checkered flag takes victory here in Virginia.
Nielsen Lawrence just right behind him is going to be able to come home with a well-earned second place finish. And Andy Cantu, he is a long ways back, but it looks like if he keeps these last couple of corners clean, he's going to have that final step of the podium.
Makes you wonder if some of these quicker drivers, we're going to start seeing these names show up in the WeatherTech Sports Car Championship as well. Cantu, who is coming to the line, not nearly as close to one of the battles behind him. So as the Texas driver comes and claims his podium spot here, I see Michael W. Johnson and Mason Filippi. Filippi still recovering. He could get one more spot.
They're going to get it around the old oak tree bend. And it's going to be onto that long, fast back straightaway. Oh, it's a very good corner exit from Filippi. It looks like he's going to have the toe.
German-born driver's going to have his hands full. Are they going to go side by side through the roller coaster? Which way is he going to pick? Dives to the left, side by side. He's still got the steam now that the air is pushing on that hood at full force. And on the brakes, Filippi gets it done. Johnson maybe thinks about trying to go back at it, but it's just not there for him. Mason Filippi, what a great move at the very end to get him up into 8th place. And among our last drivers to finish on the lead lap is only 10 will come across the line with as many laps as our leader, LeFougue. So with that, we're going to take a quick break here on the Global Sim Racing Channel. We are going to come back with the unofficial results as well as driver interviews. Stick around because on screen you'll see all the upcoming races here on GSRC. Welcome back to Virginia International Raceway as we just watched round 2 of the IMSA iRacing Challenge, and of these Porsche Caymans here, it is Gregory Lefougue that managed to pilot his up to the lead and took the win here today. Pole for him. And Nielsen Lawrence started in third. A great start got him into second. He never looked back from there, but he just didn't have the pace for Greg. And you got Andy Cantu, who finished in third position, with James French finishing P4. Then Shelby Blackstock, the former Indy Lights driver, found himself in a lot of action out there. And boy, it's a good thing he had fenders because he did a bit of banging today, but he still managed to come home fifth. Brandon Kidd was in sixth, and Connor Bloom, unfortunately, winding up in seventh. Then you've got Mason Filippi, started in fourth, fell all the way back at the start, recovered to eighth position. Michael W. Johnson was in ninth. Alan Stadd was in the 10th position.
And Alan Stadd's going to be the last driver on the lead lap. Matthew Hollander and Michael R. Johnson going to finish one lap down each. 2 laps down is Mikkel Miller. Eric Palmer, he did finish this race after starting in 16th. He'll wind up 14th, 3 laps down. 2 DNFs today. It's going to be James Pesic and James Vance.
And it sounds like we've got our winner ready to talk to us here of round 2. That is Greg Lefougue. And Greg, we were talking about it, and we said it seems that old age and treachery beats out youth and energy today, because with all your experience, you schooled some guys.
Well, I think I got really surprised actually with the standing start instead of the rolling start. So it put me in a bad mental spot, and it took me a little bit to recover. I couldn't find my rhythm at the start of the race, and then finally things started to click a little bit. And starting to pull a little bit of a gap. But Nielsen was super fast at the start. This track is very tricky, especially in iRacing, where you have grass everywhere. So if you just look at the grass, usually you get sucked out and crash. So tough race, and glad to be here.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about that pressure that you were feeling from Lawrence in the early stages. Were you trying to save your tires a little bit there, or was that your maximum pace the whole way?
So with the GT4 car the way it is on iRacing, you actually there's not a ton of tire wear, and usually the car just gets faster and faster. I think it was just having that little extra pressure kind of prevented me to get in a good rhythm, especially at the end of the straightaway. I had a little bit of problem finding my braking point there, and he was definitely catching up at that part of the track, but. Yeah, I'm not sure what happened to him. Maybe he made a little bit of a mistake after that, and that allowed me to shake him off the draft, and then after that pulled away a little bit.
Well, it certainly gave us some interesting moments at the start as we kept a close eye on you two to see if there was going to be any action. But it seems like in the end, you were able to pull away much better. Now, we've had a track that is a bunch of long straightaways down into hard braking zones. We've had a track that's a lot of turns and a lot of twisty bits. And I think we're going to get a bit of a mix of the two as we're heading off to Watkins Glen. That's usually a driver favorite. Would you count yourself among those that really enjoys that place?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, VIR and Watkins are two tracks that are, I couldn't separate them. It's definitely my two favorite tracks. They're very different, but they both have a great flow and a lot of fun to race on. So Watkins is a little bit easier to pass on. There's a little bit more of a draft happening at the top of the S's, so it's going to be another interesting race.
I have no doubt about that. It always gives us a show whenever we cover it. Well, again, congratulations on the victory and continue the good work, sir, as once we get back to racing real life here.
Thank you.
That was Greg LeFougue. Next up, second place, Denver driver Nielsen Lawrence is talking to Nick Schmeg about his podium today.
That's right, Joe. I've caught up with Nielsen Lawrence, who is able to come home in second place today. Nielsen, you've got a lot of experience racing in real life, just like everyone else in this field. But you joined the Porsche Owners Club at the age of 15. I've got to ask, have you ever been able to race here at VIR in real life?
Yeah, I'm actually a little out of my depth as far as experience is concerned for most of the field. But no, to answer your question, I've never driven VIR.
Well, it certainly looked like you, certainly schooled a lot of drivers that I think have been able to do that today. You had an interesting pace today. Looks like you might have been saving, but you just weren't able to close in on LeFougue, our leader, there at the end. So were you going all out from the beginning or just trying to save some of the tires for the end?
I was, just trying to keep within about a second of Greg LeFougue, so I could, keep the draft. And then I made a couple mistakes in a lap later in the running, and just slipped out of the draft and couldn't quite get the pace back to get back up to him. But that was my plan, was to save, but didn't quite work out.
Yeah, we noticed that draft. It was interesting to see how sometimes it helped and sometimes it didn't. What was your experience with the slipstream today on that long back straightaway and also up through the very windy S's?
It seemed to help a lot in the on the long back straightaway. About a tenth of a second, 2/10 of a second quicker. Through the S's, it's a little bit more difficult because my car was in Greg's aero wash, so it was much more finicky through those sets of corners. So I had to really stay on my toes, make sure the car didn't get away from me.
Yeah, certainly a tricky track, and you did a fantastic job of managing 60 minutes of racing at that tricky track of Virginia International Raceway because you came home second. So congrats once again on that. Before we let you go, is there anyone you want to give a shout out to?
Yeah, I'd like to thank IMSA for allowing me to participate in this. My parents, obviously, for getting me into racing, and then all my friends that continually.
Awesome. Well, they all got to see a fantastic show today. We're glad to be here broadcasting the show as well. Great fun up here in the booth. So, Nielsen, thanks for stopping by. That's Nielsen Lawrence finishing in second place today. I believe Peter has caught up with our next driver, Andy Cantu.
Andy Cantu, podium finisher here in the IMSA iRacing Challenge. How was that race for you today?
Looks like we need a second here. We're getting Carlos all mic'd up. Here we go.
Andy, I don't know if you caught that last question. Okay.
It sounds like we won't
We'll
get
be back
to
with Andy
talk
shortly.
to Andy as he's still dealing with a couple technical problems. But we do have another of our drivers here. We've got Michael Johnson, but unfortunately, our corral director has not told us which of the Michael Johnsons. Do you care to enlighten us, Michael?
Hey, absolutely. Michael Ryan Johnson. This is Michael Ryan. So.
Gotcha. So you unfortunately were one of those that finished a lap down. It seems like it was a bit of a tough day out there. We saw a number of drivers up in the climbing S's lose the car. It seemed like with the heat on the track that some of the twistier bits tended to be a little bit hard to control mid-race. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, absolutely. It was slippery out there. We'd been practicing with a little bit more grip, a little more rubber down on the track, and really getting accustomed to that. And in the race, especially the first half, it was slippery, trying to hold on to the car through there and get it up there with any pace.
Well, obviously, high heat is never fun for a driver unless you really like slipping and sliding around and whatnot. But Michael, even though you didn't quite get the results I'm sure you wanted today, when we head off to Watkins Glen, is that one a little bit stronger for you potentially? Do you see yourself getting better results there?
Well, I sure hope so. And had a great run going today. And as you mentioned, it was slippery out there. And some of the other attrition had helped me move up the field a little bit. And so I was pushing, working really, really hard to stay up there. And then a little mistake put me back in the same group as them. But definitely excited about Watkins and have a great group helping me out here. I have to thank my spotter, Andrew Chinichi, who was fantastic all day, and just an awesome race. So thank you very much to the folks at IMSA for putting this on and letting me be out here. My first time to run here.
Awesome stuff. And real quickly before we let you go, first of all, glad that you are happy with your results as well. I noticed that you raced in New Zealand, of all places. How did that come about, real quick?
Yeah, thanks for asking. That is on the taking the time machine back a little bit. But I started in kart racing when I was younger and moved up through karting and started getting pushed into Formula car racing. And one series that is extremely competitive during our winter months was the New Zealand Toyota Racing Series at the time, and I was able to find a ride and get a seat down there. Was able to do a race there, and just incredible competition, great folks. And it was a very good learning experience for me, and so that was definitely a good experience that's kind of added to my collective of knowledge from years of racing.
I have to imagine so, especially getting to an unfamiliar territory. I'm a bit jealous as everything I've seen of New Zealand seems absolutely gorgeous. But that was Michael R. Johnson, who finished 12th here today. And we've got one last driver to try and talk to. Again, it is Andy Cantu. Peter's going to try and get him mic'd up proper this time.
Andy, congratulate. Oh, I think we might have lost Andy again, guys. He's back again.
Yeah.
We'll have to move on, folks. Sorry about that, but we'll hear about our third place finisher.
So we won't get to talk to Andy. We'll try next week and see if we could get a better interview with him. But in the meantime, of course, we want to thank the sponsors of this series, both Michelin for coming and helping out here, as well as WeatherTech, and naturally all the people at IMSA who helped make this race happen today. Our huge hats off to them. But a thanks goes out to the companies that provide the software and the hardware for our broadcasts that are listed here on your screen. And additional thanks go to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. Thanks to the team today, Nick, Peter, Sean, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. Also, check out our social media, where our Twitter is @GSR Channel, Facebook is Global SimRacing Channel, and Instagram is GSRC_Graham. If you'd like to support us, check out our merchandise store at gsrc.storenvy.com. We've got a link in the description below if you don't want to have to type that out. And while you're down there, make sure and subscribe by clicking the big red button that says subscribe here on our YouTube page. As we mentioned, we're heading up to New York for the next one. That'll be at Watkins Glen, Thursday, June 11th. That'll be at 2:45 p.m. Eastern. We have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar, including the Lionheart Retro Series tonight. That is always a fun one in the Lotus 79. Until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.